She lived in a small neighborhood in a modest apartment building where everyone knew each other's routines. Life had not always been easy for her. She worked long hours at a local store, often coming home tired, her body aching, but her heart was always open. She had a reputation in her community for being kind, someone who noticed when someone was struggling and quietly stepped in to help. Most days she kept to herself, but she had a way of noticing things that others overlooked. One afternoon, as she walked home from her shift, she noticed a small figure sitting on the edge of a park bench. The boy looked nervous, hunched over with his small shoulders curling inward as if the weight of the world rested on them. His clothes were worn and a little too big, like they had been passed down through hand-me-downs. Something about him caught her attention immediately, not because he looked unusual, but because he seemed invisible to everyone else around. People walked past him, talking on their phones, laughing with friends, or rushing to wherever they were going, yet no one seemed to notice the way he flinched when someone came near. She paused a few steps away, unsure whether she should approach, but something deep inside urged her to stay. She had learned over the years that sometimes a small act of kindness could change someone's life, even in ways you could not imagine. So she slowly walked toward him, keeping her voice soft and calm. "Hey there," she said gently. The boy looked up, startled. His eyes were wide, dark, and guarded, like he had been expecting someone to yell at him rather than speak kindly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you," he said quickly, his voice trembling. "You're not bothering me," she replied with a warm smile. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Can I sit with you for a moment?" The boy hesitated. Then with a small nod, he allowed her to sit beside him. They sat quietly for a few moments. She noticed his hands were scratched, his nails dirty, and the way he avoided eye contact. Something inside her tightened. She had seen fear in people before, but this was different. It was deeper, almost like he was constantly bracing himself for something bad to happen. "Do you live nearby?" she asked gently, careful not to push too much. He shook his head. I mean, yes. Sort of," he mumbled. His voice was quiet, almost swallowed by the wind rustling through the trees. "Sometimes life can be really hard, huh?" she said softly, hoping he would open up a little. He flinched at her words but didn't speak. "If you ever need someone to talk to, or if you need help, I can try to help you," she added. The boy looked at her for a long moment, studying her face as if deciding whether she could be trusted. Finally, he whispered, "Nobody helps me. My parents." His voice faltered, and he quickly looked away, ashamed. Her heart ached. She didn't push him further. Instead, she nodded slowly, letting him know she understood. "I believe you," she said quietly. "Sometimes people who are supposed to care don't, but that doesn't mean nobody cares. I care." For the first time in a long while, he said nothing but allowed a small part of his guard to lower. That moment, though brief, was the beginning of a connection that would change both of their lives forever. Over the next few days, she made a habit of checking on him. Sometimes it was a simple, "Hello, how are you?" or offering him a snack from the small pack she carried with her. Other times it was giving him books or school supplies, things he needed but rarely had. She never pressured him to talk about his home life, but she always made sure he knew someone outside that house cared about him. She noticed little things over time, the way he flinched when people raised their voices, how he sometimes flinched even at sudden noises, and how he hesitated to accept kindness. But slowly he started trusting her. He would take the small gifts she offered with a quiet "thank you," and sometimes he would even share small details about his day at school. One afternoon, she brought him a small sandwich and a juice box. He looked at her, unsure, but accepted them after a long pause. "Why are you helping me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She smiled softly. "Because everyone deserves someone to believe in them." "I believe in you." He stared at her, processing the words. For a moment, the world felt like it had stopped. She didn't rush him, didn't demand anything in return. She simply offered her presence and care. That afternoon, he sat a little taller, ate a little more of his sandwich, and allowed himself to feel something he had not felt in a long time. Safety. As weeks passed, their encounters became routine. She didn't just offer food or school supplies. Sometimes they would sit and watch the clouds, talking about small things, the shapes of clouds, favorite animals, or the silly things that happened at school. Slowly, she saw a flicker of hope in his eyes, a smile here, a laugh there, small signs that the boy was learning to trust again. She also learned about his home life in small, careful doses. The boy never spoke about it directly at first, but he would sometimes mention being afraid of going home or not having enough to eat. She listened without judgment and never forced him to share more than he was ready to. She became his anchor, someone consistent in a world that had been chaotic and frightening for him. One day he hesitated at the park entrance, looking unsure. She noticed and asked softly, "Do you want to sit today?" He shook his head slightly. I don't know," he said. She nodded understandingly. "That's okay. You don't have to talk or sit. I just want you to know I'm here." He finally looked at her and gave a small, shy smile. It was a breakthrough, small, but it mattered. She realized that the smallest gestures often had the most significant impact. Just showing up, being steady, being kind, and not expecting anything in return could help heal wounds that words could never touch. Over time, she also started helping him in practical ways. She found him books to read, helped him with schoolwork when she could, and even took the time to talk to teachers discreetly when she saw he was struggling. She never did it to get recognition. The only thing that mattered to her was seeing the boy thrive, even in small ways. She often reflected on her own life while helping him. She knew she had struggled, faced challenges, and sometimes felt invisible herself, yet somehow she had always found the energy to help others. Now, in the boy's presence, she understood why. Helping someone else reminded her of the goodness still left in the world. It reminded her that despite hardships, kindness could create ripples that no one could measure. The boy, though still shy and wary, slowly started to change. He would speak up a little more in school, smile a little more, and even make small plans for the future, imagining life beyond fear. She never boasted about these changes. She simply noticed them quietly, celebrating each small victory inside her heart. Their bond was growing, not in grand gestures or dramatic moments, but in countless quiet interactions. A word of encouragement here, a shared laugh there, a small act of kindness every day. She was planting seeds, and although she could not see the full garden yet, she knew that if nurtured, it could grow into something beautiful. And all the while, the boy began to learn something crucial, that he was not alone, that someone believed in him, cared for him, and would stand by him even when the rest of the world seemed to ignore him. That realization, as small as it seemed, began to shift something inside him. The woman never imagined that these small, daily acts of kindness could have such a lasting impact. She didn't do it for recognition, fame, or gratitude. She did it because she could, because she knew that in a world that could be cruel, kindness was a quiet rebellion. And she believed that even one person, reached in time, could change the course of another's life forever. Over the next few months, the small boy began to trust her more and more. What had started as brief encounters in the park slowly grew into something consistent and meaningful. She always made sure to check on him after school, sometimes walking him home when she could, though she never intruded into his life in a way that made him uncomfortable. He began to understand that she was not like the adults who had hurt or ignored him. She was different. She was safe. It was not easy at first. The boy had spent years living in fear. His home was a place of shouting and anger, where small mistakes could lead to punishment and where love was rare and conditional. Sometimes, even when he was around her, he flinched at sudden movements or voices raised nearby. She noticed this and never scolded him for it. Instead, she would take a deep breath and speak softly, offering reassurance without forcing him to confront memories before he was ready. One chilly afternoon, she brought a small backpack filled with supplies, notebooks, pencils, and a few books she thought he might enjoy. "Here," she said, handing it to him with a smile. "I thought you might like these." He took it slowly, eyes wide, as though he had never received something like this before. Why would you do that for me?" he asked quietly. "Because you deserve it," she replied simply. "You deserve to have things that help you grow, things that make you feel safe and happy." He studied her face for a long time, as if trying to see the truth in her words. Slowly, he smiled. A small, hesitant smile, but a smile nonetheless. That tiny moment felt like a victory to her. Sometimes, she realized, the smallest gestures could leave the deepest impact. As the weeks went by, their conversations became deeper. He began sharing small details about his life, schoolwork, friendships, and sometimes the small worries that haunted him. She listened without judgment, never pressing him for information he was not ready to give. She offered advice when he asked and encouraged him to believe in himself, even when he didn't. One day he told her, almost in a whisper, about his parents' anger. "They get so mad. I don't know what to do," he said, tears welling in his eyes. She put her hand gently on his shoulder. "You're not alone," she said softly. "And it's not your fault. You're strong, even when it feels like everything is against you, and I will help you get through this." Her words, though simple, seemed to reach him in a way that few others had. That day, for the first time in a long while, he felt the weight on his chest lighten, even if only a little. He began to understand that there were people in the world who could be trusted, people who would stand by him without expecting anything in return. She also helped him in more practical ways. She noticed when his shoes were worn down or when his coat was too thin for the cold winter days. Quietly, she brought him replacements, making sure he had what he needed for school. She never made it a big deal, just small gestures of care that spoke volumes. In school, he began to perform a little better, not because he suddenly became a model student, but because he felt seen, valued, and capable. She would often encourage him to keep trying, reminding him that mistakes were part of learning and that nobody was perfect. She celebrated his small achievements, a good grade, a kind word to a friend, a moment of courage at home, and those celebrations meant more to him than she could ever know. She also began to talk to him about feelings, about how to express them in ways that did not hurt him or others. "It's okay to feel scared or sad," she told him one afternoon. "But it's also okay to talk about it, to let someone help you carry it. You don't have to carry it all alone." He listened carefully. Slowly, he started to practice what she taught him. He would tell her when something bad happened instead of keeping it bottled up. He learned to ask for help instead of hiding in silence. And though it was not perfect, each small step was progress. Outside of school, they began spending more time together in small ways that mattered. Sometimes they would go to the library and sit in a quiet corner reading together. Sometimes they would walk in the park, observing birds or collecting fallen leaves. She taught him to find beauty in small things, to notice moments of peace even in a world that often seemed harsh. One rainy day, she brought a small umbrella and asked him if he wanted to walk with her. At first he hesitated, shying away from getting wet, but then he looked at her and nodded. As they walked together, sharing the umbrella, he began to laugh at the way raindrops splashed around their feet. It was a simple moment, but it felt monumental. He realized that life could have moments of joy, that laughter was possible even when it had been absent for so long. She also helped him dream. Not big dreams at first, but small ones. Imagining finishing school, imagining a safe home, imagining friends who cared. She would ask him what he wanted to do one day and listen carefully, encouraging him to believe that those dreams were possible. Slowly, hope began to replace some of the fear inside him. The boy's trust in her grew steadily. He would sometimes wait for her at the park, excitement flickering in his eyes. He began to understand that her presence was reliable, a constant in a life that often felt unpredictable and unsafe. And she in turn cherished those moments, understanding that the little time they shared could make an enormous difference. There were still hard days, of course. Some days he would come to her upset, angry, or scared. Some days, the memories of his home would overwhelm him and he would retreat into silence. She never judged him for these reactions. Instead, she met him where he was, offering comfort, a listening ear, and the reminder that he was safe with her. Sometimes, she would share her own experiences carefully and gently, to show him that life could be hard for everyone and yet it was possible to persevere. She did not paint life as easy or fair, but she showed him that resilience, courage, and kindness could carry a person further than they realized. She also quietly worked to protect him. When she sensed something unsafe at home, she would contact social workers or school counselors, always discreetly, always ensuring his safety without frightening him. She became an invisible shield, guarding him from harm in ways he would never fully understand until years later. As their bond strengthened, the boy began to smile more openly, laugh more freely, and show glimpses of the person he could become. He learned that kindness was not weakness, that asking for help was not failure, and that trust could be built slowly, one moment at a time. The woman never sought recognition. She did not tell anyone about her efforts, nor did she expect gratitude. Her reward was in the small victories she witnessed, the way he stood a little taller, the way he held his head high despite the challenges, and the way his eyes began to reflect hope instead of fear. By now, she had become more than a helper to him. She had become a mentor, a guide, and a source of stability in a life that had lacked all of those things. And though she could not solve every problem, she understood that her presence, her consistency, and her unwavering care were changing the trajectory of his life in ways that mattered deeply. One afternoon, as they sat together on their favorite park bench, he turned to her and said quietly, "Thank you for everything." She smiled, reaching out to ruffle his hair gently. "You don't need to thank me," she said. "I'm proud of you, and you're going to keep growing, learning, and becoming the person I know you can be." That day, he realized something important, that he had someone in his corner, someone who believed in him when almost no one else did. And she realized something equally important, that one person's kindness could ignite hope in another's heart, hope that could grow and change a life forever. Their connection, built on trust, patience, and quiet acts of care, became a foundation for the boy's growth. He began to believe in possibilities he had never considered before. He began to dream of a future where he could be safe, happy, and successful. And she, watching him take those steps forward, knew that her choice to care had been worth every effort, every sacrifice, and every moment of patience. Through simple gestures, consistent support, and unwavering presence, she had helped him begin to heal. She had shown him that kindness mattered, that someone cared, and that life could hold moments of beauty even amidst hardship. And though their journey was far from over, the seeds of trust, courage, and hope had been firmly planted. Time passed, and the small boy grew older. He had slowly begun to leave behind some of the fear and pain that had filled his early years. Though he still faced challenges at home, he carried with him the lessons and kindness the woman had shown him. Her guidance had given him confidence to navigate the world in ways he never thought possible. The small moments in the park, the quiet encouragement, and the steady presence had begun to shape him into someone who could dream and hope again. School became slightly easier for him. Not because everything changed, but because he had learned to believe in his own strength. He began participating more in class, asking questions when he didn't understand something, and even helping younger classmates when they struggled. The pride he felt in small successes made him feel a little taller each day, a little stronger. And while his home life remained unpredictable, he had learned to find safe spaces outside it, places where he could breathe and feel like a normal child. The woman noticed these changes and quietly celebrated them in her own heart. Every smile, every act of courage, every attempt to face his fears was a victory. She knew she couldn't shield him from all of life's hardships, but she had given him a tool he desperately needed, the ability to trust himself and others. She continued to offer support in practical ways too, giving him school supplies, helping him with homework, and providing guidance when he felt lost. She became both his mentor and his anchor. Yet life, as it often does, began to pull them in different directions. The boy's parents, despite their shortcomings, eventually had to make changes in their household. He was moved to a different part of the city to live with distant relatives or enter a foster care system. The woman, though heartbroken at the thought of being separated from him, understood that this was a step toward his safety and stability. She could not go with him, nor could she change the circumstances, but she could hope that what she had taught him would remain. The day he left, they met at the park one last time before he had to move. He clutched the small backpack she had given him, filled with books, notebooks, and small reminders of her care. His eyes were wide, uncertain, and brimming with emotions he didn't know how to name. I'll miss you," he said quietly, almost as if saying it out loud made it more real. "I'll miss you too," she replied, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "But you're going to be okay. You have the strength to face this, and you have everything you need to grow and become the person you want to be. And remember, I believe in you." He nodded, tears welling up, and gave a small, shaky smile. It was a farewell, but it wasn't the end. She knew that the bond they had built was strong enough to survive distance and time, even if it was hard to see it now. After he left, life felt a little emptier. She missed the daily interactions, the quiet conversations, the small laughs, and even the moments of tension when he would resist guidance or shy away from her care. But she took comfort in knowing that he was moving toward a safer, more stable life. She reminded herself that her role in his life had prepared him for this step. Her support had been the foundation he needed to continue growing, even without her by his side. Meanwhile, the boy faced the challenges of a new environment. At first, everything was strange. The new house, the unfamiliar faces, the different rules. He missed the woman terribly. There were moments when he felt alone, uncertain, and scared. But the lessons she had taught him were deeply rooted. He remembered her calm voice, her encouragement, and the small ways she had shown him he was valued. Those memories gave him courage on the days when fear threatened to take over. He started attending his new school and met teachers and classmates who didn't know his past. Some days were easy, some were hard, but he began to apply the resilience and patience he had learned from the woman. He asked for help when he needed it, tried to stand up for himself when necessary, and even started helping others in small ways. He was beginning to understand that the kindness he had received was not something to hoard, it was something to share. Even as the months went by, he thought of her often. He would remember the park bench where they had spent so many afternoons, the small library visits and the walks in the rain. He would recall the quiet encouragement and the steady faith she had in him, and it reminded him that someone had seen his worth even when the world had not. Those memories became a source of comfort, a quiet strength that helped him face the uncertainty of his new life. For the woman, life continued too, though with a noticeable absence. She returned to her daily routine, working long hours, helping neighbors when she could, and continuing her quiet acts of kindness. Yet a part of her heart always lingered with the boy she had helped raise in small ways. She would think about how he was doing, wonder if he was safe, and hope that he remembered the lessons they had shared. Though they were apart, she never doubted that her influence would remain with him. As the years passed, the boy grew into a teenager. He faced the struggles typical of adolescence, but with the added weight of his past. Some days were rough, moments when he doubted himself, felt abandoned, or struggled to trust those around him. But he had learned how to hold on to hope, how to seek help, and how to stand firm in his own abilities. He remembered the woman's words about courage and kindness, and they guided him through difficult choices and moments of despair. He began to dream bigger than he ever had before. He imagined finishing school, attending college, or finding a career that allowed him to help others. He thought about the possibility of a life where he could feel safe, loved, and respected. These dreams, once faint and fragile, began to grow stronger each day. And though he faced obstacles, he approached them with a resilience that had been nurtured by the woman's early care. Meanwhile, the woman continued her life quietly. She helped other children when she could, giving what she had learned from her experience with him. She knew she could not save every child, but she could be a guiding presence, a beacon of hope. And in her heart, she carried the memory of the boy she had helped, confident that he was growing into a strong, kind, and capable young man. Though time and distance had separated them, the bond they shared remained unbroken. The boy's life had been forever altered by her quiet acts of kindness, and she continued to find purpose in knowing that her efforts had made a lasting difference. She never sought recognition or reward, but the knowledge that she had planted seeds of hope and courage in someone else's life was enough. As the boy grew older, he began to understand the depth of her impact on him. He realized that her support had not just helped him survive, but it had given him tools to thrive. He remembered her patience, her gentle guidance, and her unwavering belief in him. Those lessons became part of him, shaping his character, his choices, and his dreams. The separation, though difficult, had not weakened their bond. Instead, it had allowed the boy to grow independently while carrying the foundation she had provided. He learned that love and care could transcend distance, and that the people who truly believed in you could leave a lasting imprint, even when they were not physically present. For the woman, there was a quiet pride in watching him grow from afar. She understood that her role in his life was not to control his path, but to guide him until he could stand on his own. And even though she missed him every day, she knew that the love and support she had given would continue to shape him, helping him navigate the world with courage and kindness. And so, life moved forward. The boy, now a teenager, carried with him the strength, confidence, and hope that had been nurtured in him over the years. He faced challenges, made mistakes, and learned from them. But through it all, the woman's influence remained a guiding light, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, someone had seen his worth and believed in his potential. Years had passed since the boy had left. Life had moved on for both of them, though neither had forgotten the other. The woman continued her quiet acts of kindness in her neighborhood, helping children whenever she could, supporting neighbors, and keeping her heart open despite the hardships of her own life. Yet in the quiet moments, she often thought of the boy. She wondered if he was safe, if he was happy, and if he had managed to carry the lessons she had tried so hard to teach him. She never expected to see him again. She had accepted that their paths might never cross, that her role in his life had been limited to the time she could be present for him. But one ordinary afternoon, as she returned home from work, something unusual caught her attention. A young man was standing on her doorstep looking hesitant, holding a small envelope in his hands. Her heart skipped a beat. She didn't know how to feel at first, surprise, confusion, or maybe an instinctive recognition. She stepped closer and the young man took a deep breath, finally speaking. "Excuse me. Do you remember me?" Her eyes widened as recognition struck. The boy she had helped all those years ago had grown into a tall, confident young man. His features carried a hint of the shy, fearful child she had known, but they were now framed by strength, dignity, and a sense of purpose. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Words seemed too small for the emotions that hung between them. I don't know where to start," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "But I needed to see you. I needed to. Thank you." Tears welled up in her eyes. She stepped forward and embraced him, holding him close as if trying to compress all the years and all the emotions into one moment. "You don't have to thank me," she whispered. "I'm just glad to see you safe." He pulled back slightly, looking at her with eyes that shimmered with gratitude. "No, I have to. You saved me when nobody else would. You believed in me when the world made me feel worthless. I don't know if I could have made it without you." Her hands shook slightly as she reached out to touch his face gently. "You were always stronger than you knew. I just helped you see it." He smiled, a mix of relief and awe, and handed her the small envelope. "This is something I've wanted to give you for a long time. It's not much, but it's a way to repay you, even a little, for what you did for me." She hesitated, but took it, feeling the weight of his gesture. Inside was a letter, carefully written, expressing his gratitude, recounting the moments that had mattered most to him, and telling her how her guidance had shaped the person he had become. Reading the letter, she felt a warmth and pride that words could hardly describe. He continued, sharing more of his story. After leaving her, he had faced challenges, yes, but he had carried her lessons in his heart. He had finished school, worked hard, and even started helping other children in difficult situations, inspired by her example. He had chosen to live a life of kindness and integrity, to honor the trust and care she had given him when he was most vulnerable. "I wanted to make sure you knew," he said softly, "that your kindness didn't just help me survive, it helped me become someone who can help others. You changed my life." The woman's eyes brimmed with tears. She had never imagined that her small acts of care would ripple outward in such a profound way. She had acted out of love, without expectation, and yet here he was standing before her, proof that kindness could create a life-changing impact. They spent hours talking that day, catching up on the years they had missed. He told her about his struggles, his triumphs, and the ways he had tried to carry forward the lessons she had given him. She shared her own life in return, recounting the small victories and challenges she had faced, and how she had continued to quietly help others along the way. As the sun set, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold, they sat together in silence for a while. The woman reflected on how far he had come, how much he had grown, and how powerful the connection between them had always been. She realized that the bond they shared had never faded. It had only grown stronger with time, nourished by memories, gratitude, and the shared experience of resilience and trust. The young man reached out and took her hands in his. "I want you to know," he said, "that I will never forget what you did for me. I will keep passing it on. I want to help children the way you helped me. I want them to feel seen, safe, and believed in." Tears ran freely down her face now. She squeezed his hands tightly, overwhelmed by the depth of their reunion. "You've made me so proud," she whispered. "You've taken what we shared and turned it into something even bigger. That's all I ever wanted for you." He smiled, but there was a seriousness in his eyes. "I know I can never repay you fully," he said. "But I want to make sure your kindness continues to grow. Through me and through the people I help. You gave me a gift I will never forget, and I want to honor it every day." The woman felt a mixture of joy, relief, and humility. She had acted out of love, without expectation, and yet the reward before her was more than she could have imagined. It wasn't money or fame or recognition. It was the transformation of a life, the proof that her compassion had left a lasting mark. They continued talking long into the evening. He told her about the children he now mentored, the small victories he had celebrated, and the moments when he had felt lost but remembered her words and found the courage to keep going. She listened with pride and wonder, realizing that the person she had nurtured had become a force for good in the world. When it was time for him to leave that evening, they hugged again, a hug that carried years of separation, struggle, and finally, reunion. "I promise," he said softly. "I will keep doing good. I will keep passing on your kindness. And I will always be proud of you," she replied, tears still streaming down her face. "You've turned your life into something beautiful. That's more than I could have ever hoped for." As he walked away, she watched him disappear down the street, her heart full of gratitude, pride, and hope. She realized that life had a way of returning kindness in the most unexpected ways. She had given love without expecting anything in return, and yet here it was, returned tenfold, not through material reward, but through the life of someone she had helped shape. That evening, she sat quietly in her living room, holding the letter he had given her. She reread it slowly, savoring every word, every expression of gratitude. Each line reminded her of the small moments that had mattered, the afternoons at the park, the walks in the rain, the books she had given him, and the conversations they had shared. Those memories had always been precious, but now they felt like a treasure chest of hope, proof that love and care could ripple outward and transform lives. She reflected on the journey they had shared, the struggles, the growth, the separation, and finally, the reunion. She understood something deeply profound, that her acts of kindness had not only changed his life, but had also left a lasting impact on her own. She had witnessed firsthand the power of empathy, patience, and unwavering support. The young man's visit was a reminder that even small gestures could create immense change. A smile, a kind word, or a moment of attention could grow into something life-altering. And in that moment she felt the fullness of her purpose. She had acted with love, and love had returned in ways she could never have imagined. As the night settled in, she placed the letter carefully on the table, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She knew that this was not the end of their story. The young man would continue to grow, continue to help others, and continue to honor the kindness she had shown him. And she would continue to quietly watch, support, and take comfort in the knowledge that her actions had created a legacy of love and hope. She smiled, thinking about the journey that had brought them to this moment, the fear, the trust, the small victories, and the unwavering belief in each other. Life had tested them both, but it had also shown them the extraordinary power of human connection. She realized that the bond they shared, built on empathy and care, would remain unbroken, a testament to what can happen when one person chooses to care deeply for another. And in that quiet, still moment, she understood something truly remarkable. That a single act of kindness given without expectation can create ripples that last a lifetime, shaping not just one life, but countless others touched by the love it inspires. Time moved forward, and life continued its quiet rhythm, carrying both the woman and the young man on separate yet deeply connected paths. The young man, now fully grown, had transformed the lessons he had learned from her into action. He devoted his life to helping children who were struggling, just as he once had. He mentored those who felt invisible, offering guidance, care, and attention in ways that made a difference. He understood what it meant to feel alone, to feel unheard, and he worked tirelessly to make sure that no child he encountered would feel that same emptiness. Every time he helped a child, he thought of the woman who had changed his life. He carried her lessons with him everywhere he went. He remembered how she had never forced him to open up, how she had patiently waited for him to trust her, and how she had quietly provided the stability and care that allowed him to believe in himself. Her influence had shaped not just his actions, but also the way he saw the world, through the lens of empathy, patience, and unwavering support. The woman, meanwhile, continued her life with the same quiet determination she had always had. She helped children when she could, offered guidance to neighbors, and spread kindness in small, meaningful ways. Yet she always thought of the young man, wondering how he was doing, hoping that he had grown into the person she had believed he could become. She never sought recognition for her actions, but she quietly took pride in knowing that she had made a difference in one life, and that difference had grown into something far greater than she could have imagined. Years later, the young man decided to return to her neighborhood to visit her again. He wanted her to see the life he had built, the children he had helped, and the ripple effect of her kindness. When he arrived at her door, she was surprised and overjoyed to see him standing there, older, confident, and yet the same person she had once nurtured. Their reunion was filled with laughter, tears, and stories of the lives they had touched and the challenges they had overcome. "I wanted to show you," he said, "how much your kindness has grown. I couldn't have done any of this without you." She smiled, tears streaming down her face. "You didn't need me to do anything. You already had everything inside you. I just helped you see it." Together, they walked through the neighborhood, visiting the children he now mentored. The young man introduced her to the lives he had touched, the children who had once been lost in fear and uncertainty, but were now finding their own strength and hope. The woman watched with pride as her influence, combined with his determination, had blossomed into a network of care and guidance that was changing countless lives. The young man shared stories of the challenges he had faced, the setbacks, and the moments when he had felt like giving up. But in every story, he spoke of the woman's impact, how her unwavering support had given him the courage to persevere. He told her about the small victories, the smiles, the achievements, and the gratitude of the children he helped, and how each one reminded him of the importance of kindness and care. She listened quietly, her heart swelling with pride and joy. She realized that her actions, once simple gestures of compassion, had created a legacy that extended far beyond what she could have imagined. Her influence had not only helped him survive and grow, but it had also inspired a cycle of generosity and empathy that would continue to impact the world. The woman and the young man spent hours reflecting on the journey they had shared. They talked about the early days, the struggles, and the small moments that had made a difference. They laughed at the memories, cried at the hardships, and marveled at the growth they had witnessed, not just in the young man, but in the lives he was now touching. "You've turned what I started into something incredible," she said softly. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied. "You gave me the foundation to believe in myself, to believe in the power of kindness. Now I get to pass that on, just like you did for me." The woman felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had always known that kindness mattered, that small acts could create ripples, but seeing the tangible impact of her efforts filled her with a profound sense of purpose. She realized that the love and care she had given were not fleeting. They were enduring, growing stronger with time, and spreading to others in ways she could never fully measure. In the following weeks, the young man and the woman worked together on small community projects. They organized reading sessions for children, mentorship programs, and activities that encouraged trust, self-confidence, and empathy. The woman taught him the subtle ways to connect with children, how to listen without judgment, and how to offer support that empowered rather than controlled. In return, the young man shared his experiences, showing how her teachings had taken root and grown into practical strategies that could reach more children. The community began to notice the changes. Children who had once been quiet, withdrawn, or fearful were now smiling, participating, and thriving. Parents and neighbors observed the impact of consistent care and mentorship. It became clear that one person's dedication, combined with another's growth and effort, could transform an entire neighborhood. The woman reflected on how small acts of kindness had the power to create lasting change. She remembered the day she first